What's good, people? Thank you as always for passing by the channel. Much appreciated. Hit that subscribe button if you guys are new. All right, Q&A time. Let's get straight into it. There has been, I can't believe this, over 200 questions. 200 have come in. So let's get straight into it. I don't know if I can go through all 200. It's just going to be too long a video, and I don't want to do part 1, part 2, part 3, all that bullshit. So let's get straight into it anyway and see how far we can go. I've got my bin hook lager here to get me through it. All right, first one on Twitter. Ian Hamilton asks, you're on a 3-man roundtable of promoters, Eddie Hearn, Dana White, and Vince McMahon. What would your 3 questions be to them and why? One question would be, what keeps them going? I mean, we all criticize, all 3 have been criticized, but one thing you can't criticize them for is that their work ethic. These guys are worker-fucking-holics. And in the case of Vince McMahon, he's a billionaire, still keeps going. Dana White is worth $500 million now, easy because of that deal with WMEING. Keeps them going. And Eddie Hearn ain't short of a few quid either. So what keeps them going would be the question. If you had to let go one of the Liverpool front 3 to get world-class world beater, past or present, who would it be? I'd let go of Roberto Firmino, and I would get in, it pains me actually to say it because he's an ex-United player, but Ronaldo. I mean, this guy just is a fucking goal-scoring machine. I know some people will say Messi, but I'm saying Ronaldo just because I know what he can do in the Premier League. No doubt Messi can fuck up the Premier League, but Ronaldo's proven. So it'd be Ronaldo or, I can't believe I'm going to say it again. Nah, fuck it, Ronaldo or Robbie Fowler. I can't say another United player. I was going to say Ruud van Nistelrooy. Have you ever considered being a boxing manager, as you seem to have fighters' best interest? I actually have, and I'm actually even thinking about it, believe it or not, to do some events over here, particularly Nigeria. So watch this space, because I would like to see that boxers get a fair shake, and my honest heart would make sure that happens. If you had a 1-hour interview with The Undertaker, what would your top 5 questions be to him? Top 5. First question, I don't think I can think of 5 off my head right now, but first question would be, again, what keeps you going? The longevity. Because that character, and he has switched characters a couple of times, but that character is probably, I think, the most famous in wrestling history, The Undertaker. Come on, just for longevity. I know there might be better wrestlers, but just in terms of longevity. Who are the 3 most popular black sports people UK-wise now? Popular. So we're not talking good, because there are good black sports people, but in terms of popular ones, I guess AJ has to be number 1 on the list. I can't think of one bigger than AJ right now. For me, I know this is athletics and some people might not know of her too much, but Dina Asher Smith, hugely popular because she is genuinely world class. I don't know if Lewis Hamilton's popular or not. I know he's mixed race, but I mean, I don't know if he's as popular, but that would probably be my top 3. I don't even think there's a footballer out there that's that popular. That's probably my top 3. All right, let's jump on to YouTube. Fuck a duck. Oh my God. All right, so Abdullah984 says, do you genuinely think the likes of AJ versus Wilder, Brook versus Khan, Crawford or Spence will happen? I don't think Brook versus Khan will ever happen. Almost similar to Ricky Hatton Jr. Witter, it's just not gonna happen. AJ versus Wilder, there's just too much money. I mean, that pot is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, that AJ Wilder pot now, if both of them can win their next 1 or 2 fights, it's gonna be worth something like 150 million pounds, I think, not even dollars. So it has to happen just based on money. Crawford Spence, I actually can't see happening. I really can't see it happening. I don't see how Bob Arum and Al Heyman get together and make it happen. Abdullah984 asks another one. He says, who wins, Kid Galahad or Josh Warrington? Completely split on this. Completely split. Initially, when the fight was first announced or even spoken about, I thought Josh Warrington. But I think Kid Galahad could get him. I think it'll be such a tough ask to beat Selby, Frampton and Kid Galahad back to back. So I think Kid Galahad could get this one. Harry Wickenden says, will boxing ever be eclipsed by MMA or another combat sport? I guess when we say MMA, what we're really talking about is UFC, let's be honest. I mean, the lesser events, no, like ONE FC and Bellator, but MMA, and especially UFC, yes. I actually think there was a time 2 years ago when the UFC had John Jones, Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor all fighting at the same time. Their numbers would have been bigger consistently than boxing in America anyway. So obviously America had big events, but it was a big one than a small one. But there was a time when UFC seemed to be doing 1 million pay-per-views for like back to back. So could happen. Christian Barnes says, please can you break down a potential fight between Buatsi and Yard and how you think the fight would go? I think Buatsi beats him. I think Buatsi beats him. It could be, you know what it is with Yard? I don't know if Yard is like an Ahara Davis, Chris Eubank Jr. So when he comes up against a good boxer, he just gets outboxed easily. And Buatsi is a good boxer, he's an Olympian, Olympic bronze medalist. So Buatsi could just outbox him. And don't be fooled by all the muscles and all that shit. It means nothing in boxing. Buatsi could be stronger. Do you know what I mean? Buatsi could be stronger as well. So don't be shocked if they do fight that Buatsi just knocks him out. Really, honestly. Harry Wickenden asks again, thoughts on Tommy Fury's future? Too early. Too early. I don't know if he's a pure boxer like Huey and Tyson. If he is, he's got a chance. If not, and it's just a case of just being a bit muscle bound, no chance. Aldi Shakut asks, what's your prediction for Canelo versus Jacobs? Points, and Canelo will win, but Jacobs will probably win. I really do think that you've got to knock Canelo out. I think Jacobs could just beat him because Jacobs is one of the biggest middleweights ever. But come on, no, let's be honest, you're not getting a victory over Canelo. I mean, he's just signed that fucking deal with DAZN. They ain't letting him lose. No chance. KS asks, what are your thoughts on individuals wanting to pick up the sport of boxing at a later age? For example, a 21-year-old starting boxing, wanting to get to the Olympics and eventually going pro. What do you think? It's a waste of time due to the age disadvantage? No, not at all. Especially if they are heavyweights or cruiserweights where, let's be honest, you don't need that much skill. I know people might say you do, you don't. I mean, Deontay Wilder is probably, and I don't care, people might criticize me, one of the most unskillfulest, is that even a word, heavyweight boxers I've ever seen, but he has power. So if you can get some of your fundamentals to some and have knockout power like Deontay Wilder has, certainly got a chance. KS6 asks again, who do you think will be the top 5 elite footballers in years to come out of all these young prospects coming through? I do like the ones we've got. I mean, Sterling ain't old, by the way, but I do like the likes of Jordan Sancho and Callum Hudson-Odoi. They're good. But then, I mean, Kylian Mbappe is still young. I'm going to be a bit biased and say Trent Alexander-Arnold in terms of coming through. He won't stay at right back. I mean, he will probably go into midfield. He's a good footballer. He could do something as well. Joe Smith says, does Mikey Garcia deserve to be considered top 10 pound for pound after not winning a single round against Errol Spence? Not for me. Not for me. I know some people will say he went up in weight. He didn't win a round. Didn't do anything. Didn't do anything. I mean, we have seen boxers in the past jump up weight classes and do better than that. He didn't win a round, didn't do anything, and it was one of the most one-sided fights I've ever seen between two so-called elite boxers. So not for me. It's too easy to get in this pound for pound ranking nowadays. Fuck, too easy. Leo Bryan says, Addy, how will a fight between Wilder and Vladimir go? And also, how will Vitali do against Wilder? Good question. I think Vitali will decapitate Wilder. I really do, because if Wilder thinks he has punch power, and he does, I think Vitali's knockout record was ridiculous as well. So Vitali can hit, and more so than Wilder, I think Vitali can take a punch. We've seen Wilder's legs kind of wobble a little bit. Lennox Lewis hit Vitali with the uppercut that would have killed about 2 people, and he just came through it. Vitali can take a punch and hit Vitali all day. Wilder and Vladimir, I think Vladimir will take Wilder, but that's closer. Alex Turner says, would you fight Joshua twice for 40 million apiece? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I've interviewed Joshua a few times, and I can't tell you how fucking big this guy is. I can't even put into words how big he is. He's massive. I'm 5'11", Joshua's what, 6'6"? No, thank you. Joe Smith says, do you think Joshua, Wilder and Fury all want to fight each other, or do you think they're ducking each other? I've said this before, none of these fighters are scared of each other. No chance, but I mean, they want astronomical money now. The fact is, in heavyweight boxing right now, you can get paid very, very good money for fighting shit guys. I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful to Tom Schwartz, but let's be honest, we never heard of him before, and Fury might get somewhere near 10 million for fighting Tom Schwartz. I mean, come on. So, I mean, these guys don't have to fight each other anymore, as it was back in the day, to get big money. They can just fight these other guys and get paid hefty sums of money. And that's what they're doing. Robbie Emery says, what are your thoughts on Daniel Dubois and how is he coming along as a fighter? Daniel Dubois is good. Daniel Dubois is good. Has the most dullest personality ever, but he's a good fighter. The They've just got to not rush him. I said this on a video recently, like there is talks about Joe Joyce and Nathan Gorman. Why? Just take it easy with him. I mean, this kid didn't have many amateur fights and he's only had what? Is it 11 pro fights? Relax, there's no problem. Go and look at what all the greats were doing. And I don't want to put him as a great, but go and look at what Mike Tyson was fighting at 11 fights. Even Lennox Lewis was doing at 11 fights. Look at Wilder was doing at 11 fights. What's the rush? Danny S says, do you still watch the Teddy Atlas podcast? When I can. In terms of podcast, I'm more a Joe Rogan podcast guy because I like to not just watch all boxing stuff, and Joe Rogan kind of does everything. Teddy Atlas can be a bit biased and sometimes and a bit prickly. So I do watch him, but I mainly watch Joe Rogan instead. Jeff Jefferson, I like that. If that's your real name, I like that. What are your thoughts on Tion Booth's YouTube page? And do you believe his boxing ban was justified? I don't know too much about his boxing ban, but as for his YouTube page, fucking quality. Again, I've said this before. I don't know if this is his real character or he's just putting this on, but it's fantastic. And people just need to chill out a bit. I don't think he means everything he says, but we love it. Hence why the numbers are so good. I mean, what's he getting? 60, 70,000 views per every video he puts up. So fuck me, I love his YouTube page. Danny S asks, is Mikey Garcia ducking Lomachenko? Absolutely not. You certainly don't fight Spence if you're ducking Lomachenko. I just think it came down to pounds and pence. And I don't know what he got paid for Errol Spence. I'm hearing it's something around, I don't know, $9 to $10 million. Remember, he's never really had a big paycheck. I think Adrian Broner was his biggest before that, and that was nowhere near this money. He wouldn't get the same for fighting Loma. As good as Loma is, I don't know if Loma's a draw yet in terms of putting it on pay-per-view. So at this stage of his career, for a guy that has been around for a long time and had, what, a 2-year hiatus from the ring because of that legal issue with Bob Arum, I think he's just fighting the highest paid check right now. And the highest paid check was Errol Spence. He's not scared of Loma at all. ADB says, if you could pick a retired fighter when in his prime to fight a current fighter of today, who would that be? Both of a similar weight class. I would have to pick Errol Spence versus Floyd Mayweather. I really would. I just want to see how Floyd would handle him. I personally think Floyd would outbox him comfortably, but it would be good to see because a lot of people are talking about Errol Spence as being the real deal. And I don't mean just the real deal in comparison to his fellow welterweights now. I'm talking about a real deal in terms of all-time welterweights. So I'd like to see him against someone that we consider one of the best welterweights of all time. So I'd have to say Floyd versus Errol. Acoustic 230 says, what are your thoughts on Teofimo Lopez? I know it's early days, but I see some pretty boy Floyd and early Roy Jones Jr. in him. Oh, what? That's too big. I can't give you that. It's too big. Pretty boy Floyd. Pretty boy was the best Floyd ever. Not money Floyd. Pretty boy was the best Floyd ever. Offensively, defensively, everything. And early Roy Jones Jr. could be one of the greatest boxers of all time. So those two name drops, can't give you them. Teofimo is good, but let's see what he does in the next sort of year and a half. He's fought a decent level of opposition, but nothing scary. So he's done what I kind of expected him to do. Those are two big names. Don't do that again. ABCDEF says, why does Isaac Chamberlain keep on trying to mock Okolie when he was just as guilty as Okolie with the holding? Also, Okolie is calling out world champions, but Chamberlain is turning down fights with Craig Glover. He is in no position to try and mock Okolie, in my opinion. Couldn't agree more. I actually find it a joke, and I tweeted this recently. Like, he was at Okolie versus Wadi Camacho, and he, I think, tried to take the piss and tried to act like he was falling asleep. Dude, you got beat by Okolie, like, comfortably. Like, stop it. I can't stand Chamberlain sometimes. Stop it. Lone Davey says, how much do you rate Dillian White and who do you think he will beat? Dillian White's good. I think in terms of most improved boxer, Dillian White must be up there, right? In terms of most improved boxer of 2018, he's very, very good. I think the problem for him is that the other three, in terms of Wilder, Fury and Joshua, I just think are much better than him. I think all three beat him. So he's having to say he wants a world title fight, but I think ultimately he'll get beat in those world title fights. So he's very, very good. I do think he'll probably beat the rest. Maybe not Ortiz, but I do think he'll beat the rest. And I wouldn't mind seeing him eventually against someone like Alexander Usyk. He could rough up Usyk potentially, you know. That would be a good fight if that ever happens. ABCDEF ask, everyone gives Sky and Matchroom a hard time with their 2019 shows, and rightly so, but why do BT and Warren get away with murder? State of their shows so far are actually embarrassing, and everyone talks about Sky fighters going to America, but Fury and Frampton have gone, and Warrington and Saunders have US contracts waiting for them. You know what it is? I think the reason we criticize Matchroom is the same reason we criticize good footballers when they go on a drought, right? When a good footballer goes on a drought, they're shit. When a shit footballer goes on a drought, we don't care. And that's the only example I can give of you. We criticize Matchroom because 2018 was very good for them. So it's almost a case of the expectation, the bar's risen now. Whereas for Frank Warren, it's like, well, your shows are shit anyway, kind of. They're getting better, but I think majority of these shows aren't great. He's had a couple of good ones last year with Frampton and Warrington and Tyson Fury, but the majority of shows aren't that good. LG says, important, I complained to Sky about the quality of boxing on Sky Sports and was offered free Sky Sports for 12 months as a result. Guys, do what LG says. Get the phone calls in and get free Sky for 12 months. Cedric Zelmet says, do you have kids or want kids in the future? Good question, dude. Very random one, but good question. I don't have kids and I desperately want kids, like badly. So hopefully this year, we'll see. Cyril S says, if AJ can't get Wilder or Fury this year due to politics, which opponents would you like to see him fight in order of preference? I want to see him fight Alexander Usyk. Alexander Usyk would be my... Depending upon how Usyk does against Takam, and I think he'll do good, I wouldn't mind seeing Usyk versus Joshua. I wouldn't mind it. I think it would be a decent fight. In fact, I mean, Usyk could potentially outbox and beat Joshua, and I know it's crazy, but he could. So I'd say Usyk, Ortiz, and then a Dillian White rematch. Rubbish, innit? What is your favourite question of all Q&As so far, says Cedric Zelmet. I think when someone asked me to pick between Naomi Campbell and Serena Williams for a one-night stand, I think I went Serena. I think I did. I said a bottle of Jack Daniels and Serena all day. ABCDEF says, do you think it's weird the amount of people saying that GGG is washed when in majority of people's opinions he's coming off wins against Canelo twice and Jacobs in his last 4 fights? He may not be at his peak, but for me, he's still the best 160-pound guy. I agree. I feel like sometimes I'm a bit biased and I favour GGG too much just because I like him so much. But I agree. I mean, he beat Canelo. I'm sorry, he did. And he beat Canelo the last time. And Jacobs was close, but he beat Jacobs. And all of a sudden, he's done. That's why I laugh when people say he should fight Callum Smith and Callum Smith will smash him. Okay, sure he would. Global Frank 95 says, who has the most potential of these prospects and what would you see them achieving in their careers? I know I'm going to pronounce this guy's name wrong, but Daniel Yelasunov, Teofimo Lopez, Joshua Boazzi, Shakur Stevenson, and Devin Haney. The simple thing is, they could all become world champions. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if all of those guys become world champions. Every single one of them. All in tough divisions, but all very, very good fighters. If I was to say who could go the furthest in terms of not just becoming a world champion, but maybe becoming a multi-belt world champion and maybe even going a couple of weight classes higher, maybe Shakur Stevenson. Tough though. Cedric Zalmat says, in your opinion, for which sport do you need the most skills? Tough question. Ice skating. Random. Ice skating. You know, I'm trying to think of a sport I could never ever think of doing. Ice skating. Original Individual says, if Warrington beats Galahad, is it the most impressive trio of consecutive wins in British boxing in the last 10 years? Yeah, it has to be. It has to be. Just because he wasn't favourite against Selby, wasn't favourite against Frampton, and he destroyed them both, let's be honest. And if he beats Galahad as well, he's favourite for that one, but I mean, he's been underdog twice, and he's taken on an unbeaten kid Galahad. I agree. Probably is the most impressive run of any British boxer in the last 10. We could even go a bit further, maybe. Nassim Pak says, what do you think is the biggest problem in boxing and how would you personally try and solve it? Too many problems, too many problems. I mean, dodgy promoters, dodgy managers, too many belts, too many TV companies, steroids in boxing, PDs in boxing, everything in boxing, boxers that don't want to fight each other, boxers that talk too much shit on Twitter and then do nothing in the ring. Dude, I'd have to nuke everyone and start again. Boxer22 says, what do you think of Crawford versus Khan having a rematch clause? Standard, to be honest. Not because Crawford is scared of losing to Khan, he's not. But a fighter could lose just because of, I don't know, a disqualification, a headbutt, anything could happen. So it's important you have a rematch clause in there. Anders Bell says, how will Lewis Ritson fare against the likes of Robbie Davis Jr., Ahara Davis, and Jack Catterall? He'll struggle. He'll struggle. And what I've seen so far, he'll struggle. He has zero head movement. And you know what the problem is? I think he got given this, what was it, Geordie GGG thing coming up. People were literally saying he could walk through people because he was knocking people out 135 pounds. In the last 2 fights, he hasn't been able to do that. And it's like he doesn't know what to do after, right? He has zero movement. And I can see him struggling just because of that against all of them. If he can somehow add a bit of movement into his arsenal, he could beat them all, but without that, he'll struggle. Freddie Osberg says, do you still blame Eddie Hearn for Kell Brook's career progression since he won the title? If not, who do you blame? No, I've had a change of heart. I don't blame Eddie Hearn. I blame Kell Brook. I blame Kell Brook. Kell Brook's a man. And it's almost like myself now. You get to a stage in your life where you can't be pointing fingers at everyone. You've got to point a finger at yourself. So you've got to point a finger at Kell Brook and say, look, you have been with the biggest promoter in the UK and one of the biggest promoters in the world boxing now for like, how long has he been with Eddie Hearn? 8, 9 years, I think. Sorry, you've got to use Eddie Hearn for what Eddie Hearn's using you for, and you haven't done it. Cedric Zelmet says, do you think that DAZN is a profitable enterprise or will be profitable in the future? Do you think that DAZN has enough resources to buy in the future so aggressively streaming rights like they do today? Absolutely, there are smart people behind this big DAZN push. Smarter than probably yourself and me, Cedric. And those people have massive, massive deep pockets. So they'll be fine. Look, streaming is the way forward. And they are probably jumping the queue and jumping the gun before everyone. So they'll be fine. Sniper MCQ says, are you a religious man and what religion do you follow? I am a religious man, although I'm a bit more spiritual now as I get older, but I am a Christian. My dad was a pastor. So I'm a religious man. I do believe in God, but I guess as I get older, I'm a bit more spiritual. Don't give me no hate for that, people. SF says, thoughts on Tevin Farmer and your favorite defensive fighter of all time? If you're talking of all time, I mean, easy, really. Pernell Whitaker and Floyd Mayweather, phenomenally good fighters. Defensive fighters, sorry. And fighters, actually. Tevin Farmer. I like Tevin Farmer. Again, almost like Dylan White. He's one of the most improved fighters, right? That division's quite sick, though, you know. I mean, he's calling out Gervonta Davis because that's the money fight, but there are some fucking killers in that division that would beat Tevin Farmer. So good luck to him in terms of keeping that IBF belt, but a good fighter, definitely improved. James Rice says, is it safe to say the heavyweight division has now been written off until 2020? I can't see Wilder, Fury, Joshua or White fighting each other this year. Does it make it a good year for Usyk to build a heavyweight profile? Your thoughts? Yeah, I think I've written off this year, to be honest, in terms of these heavyweight fights. I mean, if Joshua now fights in June, what's the likelihood of Joshua fighting again this year? Could he fight in December? Possibly. But again, there's just too much money. These guys are getting too much money to not fight each other. That's the problem. And I think it is a good year for Usyk. Usyk's going to come. And if Usyk puts on the same type of performance against Takam that he did against Bellew and Garcia, people are going to start talking about Usyk as a threat to all of these guys. And he is a threat. He's a legit threat to all of them. G-Man Boxing. What's up, G-Man Boxing? Guys, quick one. If you haven't followed G-Man Boxing, please do. Let's support each other. He does good videos, quick, similar to myself in terms of little 4 or 5 minute clips. Go and support him. Hey, Addy, who do you think out of the champions at 160 to 168 Chris Eubank Jr. can realistically beat? I wouldn't say any. I would have to fucking agree with you. He hasn't got a chance. Let's look at it at 160. At 160, the belt holders are Demetrius Andrade, Southpaw would just school him. Danny Jacobs is just too big, way too big for him. And Canelo. I mean, come on, behave. At 168, no, what? Callum Smith is like a fucking cruiserweight. I saw a picture the other day of Callum Smith next to Lawrence Okolie. Lawrence Okolie is considered a big cruiser. Callum Smith is as big as Lawrence Okolie. I'm sorry, I know people are going to say it's not true. It is true. That's how big he is. Callum Smith is a monster. He's massive. He's massive. Can you imagine Callum Smith versus Eubank Jr.? Absolutely no chance. I guess the WBO will become vacant and then Billy Joe Saunders will probably win that. So I guess that's a realistic fight for him. Who else is a champion out there? Caleb Plant is just a better boxer than him. Again, bigger than him. And then you've got who? Durrell potentially fighting Benavidez. Benavidez will beat Durrell. And again, Benavidez is just too big. Just too big. So it comes down to size and skill, and he has neither. Education Pay says, what do you think of Joshua versus Miller on pay-per-view? When Hearn said all DAZN fights will be on UK normal Sky, just because it's Joshua, why does that break the rule? It breaks the rules because Eddie Hearn and Sky are not on good terms. Eddie Hearn needs to put on a Sky pay-per-view, unfortunately. He hasn't done one this year so far, so Joshua was always going to be on Sky, to be honest. But yeah, there is one rule for other boxers and there's one rule for Joshua, but you can understand why. Lewis Wardley says, whose resume is better, Dillian White or Deontay Wilder? Oh, Deontay Wilder's. I mean, Deontay Wilder's. And it's not a great resume, but when your resume says Luis Ortiz and Tyson Fury, win or lose, it's better than, what's Dillian White got on his resume? in terms of big names. He's beat Hellenius, Joseph Parker, Chisora. Yeah, Deontay Wilder. It's close to, isn't it? Fucking hell. Graziella Politi says, hello, who wins at welterweight, Floyd or Tommy Hearns? And Roy Jones at middleweight beats the Marvelous. No, he doesn't. Marvelous Hagler would beat Roy Jones at middleweight. Roy Jones' best weight was super middle or light heavy. At middleweight, no. Hagler would just stalk him down. All that flashy stuff was all well and good. Hagler would walk you motherfucking down. And Floyd and Tommy Hearns at welterweight, I just think Tommy Hearns could knock him out. I think Tommy Hearns could knock him out. I'm going to say Tommy Hearns. Might get some criticism for that. I'm going to say Tommy Hearns. John Brett Smith says, what are your thoughts on women's boxing? Weird. It's in a weird place right now. We've actually got some very good female boxers out there. I mean, Katie Taylor is a fantastic boxer. Clarissa Shields is a fantastic boxer. Cecilia Breakus is a fantastic boxer. But it's just not taken off. It's people just not interested in it. I mean, you compare that to women's MMA. We're interested. No one's interested in female boxing. I don't know if they can't promote it right. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's just because there's not enough depth in it. But there's not that much depth in women's MMA either. Strange. But right now, it's just not impressive because they're just not good matchups right now. They're poor matchups. But we'll see. Dawson says, do you think Dominic Breazeale has the boxing skill and power to beat Wilder? Basically, I'm tired of Wilder's antics. I believe he's holding the WBC belt at ransom. I do think that Breazeale has enough to cause Wilder problems. He's a fucking huge man. And I also think that he's a bit better than when Anthony Joshua fought him as well. But we all know Deontay Wilder's power and he could knock out Breazeale anytime he wants, it seems. Ozza Lowe says, with the light heavyweight division being so stacked at the moment, who do you see coming out on top? Man, it is stacked. I mean, I can't pick between those top 3 or 4 guys. So Bivol and Bertabiev and Godzik. And don't rule out Kovalev either. There are good guys in that division. I'd have to say Bertabiev, just close though. Chris Golden says, a very happy birthday for tomorrow. Oh, cheers, dude. My birthday was Monday the 25th. What did you do to celebrate? I got on a plane to South Africa. 786 Naf says, is Al Heyman destroying boxing? Not really. I think it's a collective thing. I just think that there's just too many TV people right now in boxing, unfortunately. So we're just not going to get the fights, and I don't know. It's just sad, isn't it? Let's be honest, it's bullshit. Castle View Promotion says, Ade, please, with your African connections and your regular visits, what would be the budget holiday visit in your view? Chris Eubank Sr. has recently praised it too. His highlight area was Rwanda. Oh yeah, he was in Rwanda recently. Rwanda's nice. I've been to Rwanda. Uganda's not bad. But I think of all the African places I've been to, I think Gambia was probably the best. Funbot says, who would win in a fight in 2 years' time if Conor Benn were to come up and challenge Eubank? I'm guessing you mean Chris Eubank Jr. Chris Eubank Jr. would destroy him. I don't rate Conor Benn at all. Wayno PT says, hi Addy, big fan of your channel. In your opinion, who would you rank as the UK's top 5 pound-for-pound fighters in order? Good question. Oh, I haven't thought about this for a while. Top 5 pound-for-pound. Man. All right, I'm going to get stick for it, but fuck it. I'm going to have to say AJ number 1. He has 4 belts. Come on, people. He has 4 belts. Don't give me stick. He has 4 belts. AJ number 1. Fury number 2, just because of that Wilder performance. I mean, you don't take a 2-year layoff and then, I think, beat Wilder. So AJ, Fury, Billy Joe Saunders, Josh Warrington, Josh Taylor. Don't give me stick, it's just off the head. Stephen Kerr says, most anticipated press conference with 2 guys who haven't boxed yet. Mine is White versus Wilder. Yeah, with you. Fucking hell, you would need security. I mean SAS type security for that one. Another one, and it's obviously not going to happen, but White versus Tony Bellew would have been a good press conference as well. That would have been an interesting one, but yeah, that's a good question. Lionel Kashila says, Ade, not a boxing related question, but out of B.I.G., Nas, Jay-Z, Big Pun, and Big L, who had the most potential and lyrics in hip hop? I can't lie to you, I'm a big Nas fan, so I'm going to say Nas, but I mean, B.I.G., fucking hell. But in saying all that, why is Tupac not there? Like, what is this? Is this just an East Coast thing you've got going on there? But out of those 5, I think you've got 5, I would say Nas and B.I.G. Although Big L was underrated and Big Pun, but I don't know why I'm not a Jay-Z fan. I'm going to get stick for that. I'm just not. I don't know why. Callum Burr says, can Josh Kelley become a world champion? Yes, because there are ways to maneuver yourself to become a world champion. No, because he's in a 147-pound division. FIFA JR says, hi Addy, love and respect as always, brother. Fantasy matchup, Tony Bellew versus Dillian White. Keep up the great content. Dillian White's just too big. I mean, Dillian White's big, you know. I think, again, we are in the land of the giants when it comes to these heavyweights now, but I've sat close to Dillian White. It's a fucking big dude. It's a big, big dude. So I just think he would eventually just walk down Tony Bellew and fuck him up. Michael Linehan says, favourite boxer of all time based on his style, not personality, Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard, if we're talking style, I mean, Sugar Ray Leonard could do everything. Everything. So I'm saying Sugar Ray Leonard. Followed very closely by Muhammad Ali. Christopher Smith says, who are you picking between Hurd and Williams? I can see an upset realistically happening. Williams has skills. He does. J-Rock does have skills. And Hurd isn't the greatest. He's big, but J-Rock's pretty big as well. I can see an upset, but I think Hurd will come through this. But you just don't know, right? You just don't know. Good fight, though. Very good fight. Fimble White says, do you think DAZN will end up charging more and more as they don't get the subscribers they thought? If you had to pick a player from any era, which would it be to play for Liverpool? I would love to have seen either Shearer or Greaves. First question, would DAZN increase their prices? Probably. I mean, they probably had a sort of 3 or 4 year plan to increase it by a small amount each year. Nothing crazy. Obviously, it's now going to be, what, $19.99 as opposed to what it was before, $9.99. So that's a 100% increase. So they'll probably go to 25. But they are going to chuck a lot of content on that. So it might just be worth it. And you know what it is? We just don't know their subscriber base. We don't know how many subscribers they got. They might have a lot. I think a lot of people say they don't. I probably disagree. With them getting Canelo, especially Canelo fighting Jacobs, I think they're going to get a hell of a amount of subscribers. And a player to play for Liverpool in any era. I'm guessing you're talking about from the Prem. So I would love to have seen, this is so random, but Matt Letitia, I don't know what it was. I used to love Matt Letitia. Just thought he was so underrated. But you never know, he could have been one of those players that was a big fish in a small pond in Southampton. Sorry to all the Southampton fans out there, but you know what I mean. Derek Chisora, not the Derek Chisora, unfortunately, says, Usyk versus Big Three, who wins in each matchup? So Usyk versus Joshua. I actually think, simple answer is I think Usyk probably loses all 3 of them. But I need to see him against Takam first. I need to see him against a heavyweight, a legit heavyweight. Although Takam isn't the biggest, I just need to see what he can do. He could easily outbox Deontay Wilder. Easily. Like, Usyk is a better boxer than Tyson Fury. I don't care anyone. He is. And Tyson Fury got caught twice. Just twice. If it wasn't for Tyson Fury getting caught twice, that would have been a landslide victory. Can Usyk not get caught by Wilder? Maybe. So he could beat Wilder. Fury's going to be tough because Fury's a good boxer. And he could beat Joshua. So Fury's the tougher one for me. The other 2 up in the air. Mojo says, hey, Addy, a couple of questions. If you were to bet, would you rather choose football or boxing? Which you reckon you could make more money in? Are you talking about betting on the sports, or are you talking about just being in the sports? I've been in the sports, football all day. And why do you think Amir Khan thinks he can win against Crawford? He seems really confident. Because all boxers are slightly delusional. All boxers are slightly delusional. So, delusional. So I think that's why. And you've got to be that confident. You can't go into the fight thinking you're going to lose. Amir Khan's decent. Amir Khan is a decent 147 pounder. I mean, he has super hands, so you never know. You never know. Dominic Cesari says, do you like Everton Football Club? Absolutely not. Shabs A says, Addy, let's go old school. If there were only one belt in each division, who would be the champ in each division right now? Oh, good question. All right, let's do a few divisions here. Let's start 140 pounds. 140 pounds, Progress. Am I saying his name right? Progress. 147 pounds, Errol Spence. 154 pounds. That's a tough one. It's weird because Charlo lost, but I still think Charlo is the best 154 pounder. But I'd have to say Jarrett Hurt, just because he hasn't lost. 160 pounds. I can't believe it. Like GGG, but he's not got a belt. So I'm going to say Canelo. 168 pounds. I'm going to say Benavides. 175 pounds. That's the fucking division, that one. I'm going to say Bertabiev. Cruiserweight. Bradis. Heavyweight, Joshua. Just because he's Nigerian. Eunice Charles says, Addy, what's your opinion on the knife crime in London? It's bad. It's bad, right? I do, though, think that it's been this bad forever. I mean, that they're making it out like it's some sort of epidemic now. It's been this bad. I remember when I was young. I remember my big brother when he was young, and it was just always like this. It's always been like this. I just think there was no social media and there was no smartphones. There were no camera phones, so it wasn't highlighted as much. But it is bad, and fingers crossed they can get a hold of it because, I mean, this is just stupid, right? You need education. You need so much. You need role models. Everything. You have to start from young. I mean, you have to start educating these kids at 5 and 6 years old. There's no point trying to talk to a 15 and 16-year-old. They're already ingrained. You need to start early. That's just my opinion anyway. Air says, what do you think of the Galahad versus Warrington press conference? I actually really liked how Dominic was taking everyone on. Liked it, loved it. You need these things. And it's funny because I was watching the press conference and I was thinking, Frank Warren must be so pissed he didn't put this on pay-per-view. He must be pissed. Come on, he must be. Because I think just based on that press conference alone, he's already guaranteed himself a few pay-per-view buys. But it's free. And look, we're happy it's free, but he must be livid. But fantastic press conference. Hitman Hard says, Prime Pacquiao versus Spence. Who wins? Pacquiao was frightening, you know. I think we forget Pacquiao was... People were fucking scared of Pacquiao. Like, scared. His speed and punch power, frightening. Fucking frightening. I mean, there is no welterweight out there. There is no... In fact, there is no welterweight. There is no 140-pounder. There is no 135-pounder. There is no 130-pounder that throws or threw as many punches as Pacquiao did as a welterweight with that accuracy and that punch power. So I would actually favour Pacquiao. I know people might disagree, but I would actually favour Pacquiao. Anthony Moore says, greetings, Addy. One of the best channels on YouTube, in my opinion. Peace, brother. If you were Dillian Whyte, what moves would you make? Would you keep trying to find a route for a title or just make as much money as you can fighting the top 10 opponents? A bit of both. Dillian Whyte's almost starting to become a bit of a draw himself. The numbers are good. The pay-per-view numbers are pretty decent. What was it? 400,000 a piece or so for Parker and Chisora. So he can just cash the checks fighting these lower ranked guys. But ultimately, I think he ultimately wants to prove himself against those top three, right? In particular, Anthony Joshua. That's the one he really wants, I think. Just to prove that he is on their level. Because we all constantly talk about the big three. And he thinks he wants it to be a big four. And realistically, there's more chance of Usyk making it a big four than Dillian Whyte. So I think he just wants to prove that he is that good, plus make some money. So I think he's got to kind of juggle the both. Solomon Latif says, hi, Addy, did you ever get into any fights when you were younger? Also, did you ever box as a kid? Standard, I got into fights. Like, unbelievable amounts of fights. I went to an all-boys school called Rokeby. So you had to fight. You just had to, unfortunately. But for me, I was fortunate and unfortunate in the sense that I had two older brothers that were considered a bit naughty. So people didn't want to fight because they were scared of my brothers. So my mouth went a bit. But yeah, we were fighting each other, fighting other schools. And I did a bit of kickboxing and boxing as a kid. So yeah, a bit of both. Haida Khan says, hi Addy, look forward to your videos every day. Thank you, brother. Which boxing promoter do you think is the least reasonable and the biggest obstacle to making fights we want to see? And how do you think Errol Spence would do against the four kings of the 80s? He wouldn't do. As for the boxing promoter, I don't know, Bob Arum seems a bit shitty, doesn't he? I think Bob Arum probably is the one promoter that I think he would be a stumbling block to the big fights happening. I don't know why I think that, I just do. Could be wrong, but that's what I think. Patman said, what's up, Addy? Do you think the current sanctions for steroids, PEDs in boxing is currently harsh enough? I feel it gives such a benefit to fighters to be using, and currently the punishment doesn't seem to be severe enough. Canelo only got a 6-month ban. Anyway, your thoughts? No, it's a fucking joke. It's a fucking joke. It actually makes me sick. It actually makes me sick. It just makes me sick. Justin Gatlin, I think, got 8 years. 8 years for running in a straight line for 10 seconds. 8 years. I think he served 6 or 4 or something. I don't know what it was. In a straight line for 10 seconds. Canelo goes in there and fucks people up. Fucks them up. And he got 6 months. Fucking disgraceful. Max Kullett says, Addy, couple of questions. Who would win? Usyk versus Holyfield. Both prime. Good fight, but Holyfield, I think, would take Usyk. And do you think Miller's comments on Joshua's PD usage to bulk after the Olympics have any legitimacy to them? Probably. But I mean, Miller's one to talk. I mean, I went back and watched some of Miller's old kickboxing fights. Miller was small. I mean, look at the size of him now. And he does a lot of bodybuilding, Miller does. Go and watch him on his sort of Instagram. He's always bodybuilding. So, I mean, he's fucking suspect as well. But yeah, he's probably, look, I don't trust any motherfucker when it comes to PEDs. I don't. And I'm a big Joshua fan, but don't trust anybody. Chevin says, a big American YouTube channel that subs to you has invited you to join a live stream show, sort of bridging the gap on boxing issues. Are you down? The Kelley Enigma. I'm down, homie. P.S. Where's my dollars? Oh yeah, guys, me and Chevin had a bet. He won. I owe him some money. Chevin, I've tried to do this thing. I've downloaded that Circle app thing you're talking about. It's not happening. So we're going to have to think of another way, brother. Another PS, if Yard is just a baby and not ready for Kovalev, tell the bald-head lion to challenge David Benavidez, who's 5 years younger than him. He'll come up 7 pounds. It's true. It's true. I'm so interested in what's going to happen with this Yard and Kovalev situation. I don't think they take the fight. And they're already making up stuff like, we're not traveling to America, we're not traveling to Russia. The fight can only happen in the UK. Who the fuck do you think you are? Jack Payne says, regardless of the belt holders at the time, what will be the best matchup for Usyk in the heavyweight division for the fans? Personally, I think Usyk versus Tyson Fury is perfect fight for the fans for ring IQ and the ability of footwork. What's your opinion? Jack, I have to be honest with you, I think that would be a boring fight. I think they could just cancel each other out. I want to see Usyk in there against someone that will rush him. So I want to see him against Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte will just think, fuck it, I can't outbox you, so I've got to try and fuck you up. And I want to see how Usyk deals with someone big and strong like Dillian Whyte, who will just come straight for him. That would be my favourite fight, if I'm honest with you. Laguna JD says, hypothetically speaking, Fury beats Wilder in the rematch. Fury and Joshua happens. Who you got winning? Plus, who you got winning? Dubois versus Gorman, Dubois versus Joyce. Loads of questions. Sorry, keep up the sick content. No problem, brother. I think Fury beats Joshua. I've said this a few times. I think Tyson Fury does actually beat Anthony Joshua. He could actually comfortably beat him on points. Dubois versus Gorman is a good one. I think Gorman will outpoint Dubois. I think Joyce would knock out Dubois. So good little fights there. None of them are going to happen, let's be honest. Sunny Singh says, Addy, I appreciate your videos, dude, and you taking the time to interact with us like this. No problem, brother. I've seen some people say that T and Booth's sayings are getting boring, such as status of a plum and doing well sexually. Is the new test of a casual those that don't like T and Booth's videos and those that do? Yes. I love T and Booth. I don't understand the issue with it. I think his sayings like IFL Umar is never going to get old. Ever. Joe Mansfield says, Dillian Whyte versus Pulev. Who would win, and is it a good fight for both? It was supposed to happen, wasn't it? I swear Dillian Whyte turned down the opportunity to go and fight Pulev in Bulgaria. I'm sure of it. And that's why Hugh Fury went over. Who else turned it down? Jarrell Baby Miller turned it down as well. Pulev's still good. Pulev's still servable, still strong, big. Good fight. Oh, tough fight, that one. Tough fight. I favour Dillian Whyte just. Zagam Kazemi says, Addy, what's your take on Warrington versus Kid Galahad? I answered it briefly before, but I think it's a great fight. I really do. I'm split on it. Initially, when it was announced, I said Warrington beats him, but as it gets closer, I'm actually starting to favour Kid Galahad. Yeah, I think Kid Galahad could take this one. I really do. Also, you may have highlighted this in one of your previous videos, but I can't actually remember. Do you think Anthony Joshua is unfairly treated by the doping agencies? According to his Snapchat, he's been randomly drug tested far too often. Not really. I mean, how difficult is it to piss in a cup and give a bit of blood? It's not difficult at all. I think that he should want to be treated like this just so he can almost squash the rumours that he does cheat. I mean, because there are people out there, let's be honest, that think Anthony Joshua's on PEDs. I think if you was to ask most boxing fans, do you think AJ's on PEDs? I think it would be 50-50 split, maybe even 60-40 in terms of they do think he's on. So I think the more he does this, the more he kind of silences those critics. I think it's important as the heavyweight champion of the world, as one of the faces of boxing, that he does get tested a hell of a lot. Chicken Nugget says, why has Dominic Brazil got given the mandatory shot for the WBC, whereas Dillian Whyte has been #1 ranked by the WBC for 1 or 2 years? It doesn't make sense. And I think you mentioned here that Whyte has fought better opposition. Is the WBC corrupt? Obviously. I mean, their nickname is We Be Crooks. I don't know if you know that, but the WBC is completely corrupt. But I'm not quite sure with this WBC ranking. I'm not quite sure. Dillian Whyte has been ranked, I think, #1 or #2, but so is Dominic Brazil. So I think they fucked up and they're just giving it to Brazil now. But, I mean, Dylan White will get his shot. Patience, sir. Patience is a virtue. Henry999 says, the boxing genie has granted you the ability to become a boxer. What weight do you choose to fight at? Heavyweight. Heavyweight, right? I mean, who wants to make weight? I mean, fuck that. Imagine making weight. Oh, I feel sorry for them. Plus, growing up for me, the heavyweight man or the heavyweight king was the baddest man on the planet, and I would love that title. What promoter do you hire? That's a good question. I'm going to say Eddie Hearn. They're all fucking corrupt, but I feel like the ones of the 80s like Don King and Bob Arum and Frank Warren and Mickey Duff will just fucking rub all the money they can from you. Sorry, don't sue me, people. So I'm going to say Eddie Hearn. What trainer do you use? Emmanuel Stewart. And I want to be in the Kronk gym with those kids as well. And what song do you walk out to? Love those questions. What song? You know, I like Kell Brook's ring entrance. I like that one. I don't know why. Either that or something Tupac. Yeah. Or Nothing. Imagine walking out to Nothing. The intimidation factor. Fucking hell. Devil of Hell's Kitchen says, Prime Mayweather versus Prime Pacquiao. Who would you pick to win the fight? It's a difficult question because Prime Mayweather was Pretty Boy, and that's probably 135 pounds. Prime Pacquiao, I think, was that era with Barrera and Morales. So it's a different weight class, but I'm going to go Prime Floyd. Yeah, it's got to be Prime Floyd. Has to be. He's unbeaten. He's unbeaten. He's unbeaten. Yeah, he's unbeaten. Glyn Mash, add a massive fellow red here. Liverpool, Liverpool. Has there ever been a better all-round centre-half than Virgil van Dijk? Man has everything. I'm sorry, I'm going to get a stick here, but he has everything. Someone tell me what Virgil van Dijk doesn't have. I actually said to someone the other day, I wish Drogba was around. Because I need to see him against someone that I think would give him a good go. Like Drogba physically had a bit of everything as well. I want to see him up against someone that physical. Because right now, it almost is like he's playing against kids. He just pushes them off, like, what are you doing? Don't come over here. Phenomenally good defender. But we need to see it consistently for, I don't know, 4 or 5 more seasons, but phenomenally good defender. Outzaz Rajan says, what do you think about Wyatt's WBC problem? And do you think Liverpool win the league or UEFA Champions League? Let's briefly talk about this Dillian Whyte problem with the WBC. So Dillian Whyte was supposed to fight Dominic Brazil, final eliminator, to then go and fight Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder was supposed to fight Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury signed to ESPN. It didn't happen. And Dominic Brazil got pushed up to a title fight. What's the problem? What's the problem? Come on, Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte's acting like he's fucking ran through killers and deserves his shot. I mean, he beat Joseph Parker, who came off a loss to Anthony Joshua. I'm not being too critical, I'm just being honest here. And Derek Chisora. He didn't beat killers. So, I mean, he'll get his shot, but I think he has to be a bit patient. He'll get his shot, he will get his shot. What he should do is put himself in a mandatory position to fight Anthony Joshua, which I think he's going to do, which will be good. And will Liverpool win the Champions League or League? It's tough, isn't it? I mean, it's tough. We can't lose. And we have to hope that either United or Tottenham get a result against Man City. But I mean, it's more likely that United might get a draw at Old Trafford, but I mean, do United really want to get a draw and gift us the title? I mean, say gift us. Liverpool still got to win all their games. I don't know. As for the Champions League, obviously we've got Porto next, and we're going to play Barcelona. Barcelona will beat United. They will. Can we beat Barcelona? Yes, we fucking can. So you never know. Rahul Raya says, Gerald McClellan versus modern day middleweights and super middleweights like Canelo, GGG, Frotz, Groves, etc. How would he have done? Respect from Singapore. Singapore? Respect, brother. They're built differently back then. They really are. They're just built differently. Groves wouldn't fucking stand a chance. Groves could get iced in the first minute. Frotch is tough, but I think Frotch would get beat as well. Canelo is naturally just too small for them. So I think Canelo could get beat. It'd be a tough fight. GGG would be a good one. GGG is tough as fuck, you know. GGG's never ever been wobbled. Tough as fuck. But then again, no, it's Canelo. But I think he'll beat all of them apart from GGG. Yeah, come on, stick, bring the stick, and I'm going to get stick. John Smith says, Ade, are Golden Boy fights rigged? I don't have to read the rest of the question. Yes. Come on, let's be honest, they are. I mean, they have to be. I mean, some of Canelo's decisions over the years have been just diabolical. I mean, he got a draw by one judge against Floyd Mayweather. It's just diabolical. Go and watch the fight against Lara. I mean, even the scorecard against Cotto, scorecard against GGG. I mean, come on, how much more proof do we need that it's just corruption of the highest bullshit? Svetomir Borisov says, hey Ade, peace and love from Bulgaria. Peace, brother. I have a question for you. On March 23rd, Pulev won his first fight as a top-ranked boxer in the USA against Bogdan Dinu. Despite the brutal cut that the Bulgarian had in the fourth, his cut man for the match, Rudy Hernandez, said it was one of the worst cuts in his career. He managed to knock out or knock down Dinu 3 times. After the fight, Pulev said he wants a rematch against Oscar Rivas. He lost against him in the Olympics back in 2008 when Rivas won against Jennings. He said he also wants to fight Pulev. What are your thoughts on this fight actually happening? I know you like real boxing beef. It looks like we might just get something happening here. I'm split on it. I'm splitting it because I want to see Pulev now call out the big guys. Pulev hasn't actually fought one of the big guys since he lost to Klitschko. What was that, 5 years ago? I want to see Pulev now call out Joshua. Remember, he was supposed to fight Joshua, it didn't happen. Call out Joshua, call out Fury, who's now signed with Top Rank as well. That fight can happen. So I don't want to see him against Rivas. Rivas is an up-and-coming fighter. I know Rivas is 29, but he's up-and-coming in terms of his popularity and what people know about him. I want to see Pulev against, if not the top 3, Dillian White or Povetkin or Ortiz. No one else for me. Not for me anyway. Prophet Ascending says, if the best version of Mike Tyson, Foreman, Wilder, Joshua, Muhammad Ali, Tyson Fury, Lennox Lewis, and Evander Holyfield, you can dream on, entered into an 8-man all-time great boxing super series where they all fought each other once, earning points for a win, and then the top 2 fought for the title of the best of all time, who would be in the final and who would end up the eventual winner? Muhammad Ali, because he's the best, just the best. In terms of who would be in the final with him, for me, I'm split between Lennox, Tyson, and Evander. I would say Lennox Lewis. I think Lennox Lewis would be in the final against him. I know a lot of people are going to think Tyson, but peak for peak. I don't know. Tyson struggled against big men, you know. Then again, Lennox Lewis has been knocked out cold a couple of times. I'll still say Lennox. That his peak is fantastic. That jab, size, everything. Could take a punch as well. I know he's been put down, but could take a punch as well. Jake Atkins says, what do you make of Carl Froch's punditry career in regards to the comments he's made about recently retiring fighters? I think Carl Froch is just a shit pundit. If I'm honest with you, I think he's a shit pundit. I don't see him lasting that long with Sky because a lot of people are starting to make complaints. I actually like Andy Lee. Andy Lee's refreshing because he comes in with no bias, doesn't favour anyone, just comes in. And Dave Caldwell. Dave Caldwell's pretty good as well. I think those two, along with Adam Smith, by the way. Adam Smith is a fantastic commentator. So those would be my 3 if we're talking UK bound. Obviously, Paulie would be number 1 if we're talking bringing someone over. Leo Donald says, question 1, if you were a boxer, what would be your entrance music? I think I just answered this one, but I think it would be, I love Kell Brook's music. I don't know what it is. I love all of the lights. I don't know what it is. Or nothing at all, just to really be intimidating. Just walk in with nothing. Question 2, 3 boxers you would like to see have a movie made about their life story. Good one. Tyson Fury would be a decent story. I think most American boxers coming up, the hardship a lot of American boxers got coming up would be good. But I think Tyson Fury would be interesting. I would like to know more about Nigel Benn's upbringing. Obviously he went to the army. He talked about having to fight his way out of Ilford in terms of the racism. That might be good as well. And Chris Eubank. I don't think there's a lot known about Chris Eubank's upbringing in terms of what, I think being born in the West Indies, going to America, coming over here to the UK. I think there are a lot of holes that need to be filled, so I'd like to know about Chris Eubank as well. Objective Envision says, does Carl Froch possibly suffer acute mental disorder after having apparently everything a man could want, yet self-indulgently feeling the need to shit on retirement announcements of Groves and DeGale? I can't lie to you, I'm a bit split on this, I am. He just doesn't like either, right? He's never ever liked George Groves, so I didn't expect him to say anything nice in his retirement. And he doesn't like James DeGale. Doesn't like James DeGale either. Sometimes though, I do think he does this just to humour us. Even this 80,000 talk and all, I don't think he does it to humour us. I think there's quite a smart man inside Carl Froch, if that makes any sense. So I do think he does it just to continually take the piss. Don't think he means it all. ABCDEF says, who wins at 135 pounds if they fight next, Linares or Mikey? Interesting. No one really talks about that matchup. After Linares schooled Crawler in the rematch and Mikey slept as Latin Cannon, that fight was massive, but both coming off bad losses because they went up high in weight. It could be an interesting fight. I think I favour Linares as he took a less of a beating and had less weight to cut. Interesting fight, you know. No one really speaks about that one. Obviously, everyone talks about Mikey versus Loma. Linares is sharp, 135 pounds. But, you know, the thing is about Linares, he didn't take a beating, but he still crumbled. And that's, for me, a sign of a man that has taken too many beatings, right? I don't think he fully recovered from the Lomachenko beating and the tough fights before that. Go and watch the fight against Kevin Mitchell, brutal. So I actually think that, although Mikey took a beating against Errol Spence, that's probably one of the first times he's actually really taken a beating, where I think Linares has taken several beatings now. So I think Mikey might just be fresher, believe it or not. And don't forget, Mikey had a couple of years out in the ring as well, so he's a bit fresher. Tipsy Man says, what year do you think one of the top 3 heavyweights will fight? Thanks, love your channel. Thank you, brother. 2020. 2020, it's just not going to happen now. This year is a write-off. Fuck it. Notorious HC says, 2 questions. What is your actual job and how did you get into it? And how long have you been doing it for? My actual job, well, a few jobs actually. So I work for Fox Sports. I do in Africa, by the way. I do all their sort of boxing commentary and just their boxing analysis, random. And I also work for a company called Kwesi Sports. So in the UK, they're a bit like BT Sports. They've launched in Africa about 2 years ago, and they're getting bigger and bigger. And I do their commentary, and I do their, in studio work, I do their boxing analysis of fights around the world, and I do a bit of MMA stuff for them as well. How did I get into it? Was actually through kind of like this. Obviously, I don't know if you know, but I had a YouTube channel before called Box Talk, and based off that channel, a few channels in the UK asked me to come down and talk about boxing. And then it kind of grew and grew and grew, and obviously I kind of go out there and put my stuff out there in terms of chase and follow people on LinkedIn, people that can give me opportunities. And right now I work for about 6 different channels, plus obviously this stuff here. I've been doing it for about 4 years, so not long at all. And do you think we will see an undisputed heavyweight champion by the end of 2020? Fucking surely. I mean, surely we will. My fear is that Joshua might get stripped of a couple of these belts. I've got a weird feeling that a couple of the mandatories are coming up and he's going to be stripped, so these belts could go everywhere. But I do think there is a chance that we do see finally, maybe, I don't know, wouldn't put any money on it, Wilder Joshua early 2020. Yeah, who knows. Boasty says, don't you think it's amazing how the Ukraine is a very poor country? Is it a very poor country? Didn't know that. With a war going on, I do know that. Hardly any pro boxing shows there and not much money for their amateur team, yet they still produce non-stop talent without making excuses. Love it. Fucking love it, right? I mean, I've heard people in this GB team talk about funding being cut and all that crap. Sometimes nothing just beats hard fucking work, funding being cut. I'd love to see how much funding Loma got coming up and Usyk got coming up and Godzik got coming up, and all of them medaled quite well in the Olympics, all of them. Fucking good one. Darren Johnson says, what boxing fight is your most memorable and why? Chris Eubank versus Nigel Benn, the rematch. It's just, I mean, everything, right? Everything. And that was that heyday of British boxing, or they say the heyday of British boxing. And those two just hated each other. But I remember going into that thinking Nigel Benn's got a chance here because he's improved. The fight actually wasn't that good, but just the build up to it makes you remember it a lot. So that was it. Because Nigel Benn was my favourite boxer at the time as well. Paul Blackmore says, do you think Mikey Garcia will fight Luke Campbell or give up his belts? There's no way he's making 135 pounds anymore. No way. Hybrid Phoenix says, love the channel, Addy, keep it up. My top 5 pound for pound are currently in no order. Loma, Canelo, Crawford, Usyk and Spence. Just wondering what changes you would make to that list. I think I would remove Spence. I really do, and people might give me stick for it, but who's he beat, really? I mean, he beat Brook, granted. But I could say Brook was coming off a loss and coming down from 160 pounds, I won't. So he beat Brook, and he beat Mikey, and Mikey was coming up for 135 pounds. That's his 2 biggest wins on that resume. Does that make you a top 5 pound for pound fighter? Not in my opinion. When you look at the rest, I mean, Lomachenko, what is he, a 2 or 3 world champion now? Canelo's a 2 world champion, and his resume is ridiculous. Crawford's a 3 world champion, and Usyk cleaned up the cruiserweight division in 4 fights. Yeah. So I don't know who I would get to replace Spence, but I'd have to think about it. But there are fighters out there that have done good things. Like Inouye, I think, is a 2 world champion. There are fights out there that people just don't mention. Chin said, how would you see a Khan versus Mayweather bout go? A really fast boxer as opposed to typical brawlers Floyd schooled. Floyd has fought fast boxers. I mean, Zab Judah was fucking fast. Floyd beat him. Even Shane Mosley. Yes, it wasn't the Shane Mosley, but Shane Mosley was fast as well. I mean, Khan is just too reckless. Floyd would counterpunch Khan to death. Thoughts on PBC and Al Heyman? Same question from Chin. Not what I expected. In the early stages, I thought that it was going to take over boxing and it was going to be almost the UFC of boxing. Didn't happen. But still going well, still going strong. Opinion on Dillian White. Decent boxer. I think he thinks he's done better than I think he has. Does that make any sense? Like, he still doesn't have much on the resume, but he thinks he's somehow deserving of everything. I don't get it. I don't get it. What's your opinion on being undefeated and having no losses? Overrated. Well overrated. My top 5 boxers of all time have all lost, all been stopped, all whatever. Doesn't mean anything to me. Doesn't mean anything. So, well overrated. This must be past an hour now. Lager's done. Let's keep going. Let's see if we can get a few more in. Sunny Singh says, ages ago, Coogan was supposed to fight some geezer called Heavy D or something like that. Whatever happened to that whole thing? Thanks. Heavy D, by the way, is an Arsenal fan. I don't know if you guys know him. Arsenal fan, usually on Arsenal fan TV. Don't know what happened there. I think it was actually a joke. But yeah, that's not going to happen. Mark Turner says, if the big 3 in the heavyweight division eventually fight each other, who comes out the other end on top? And who will they be fighting in their next defense? And if they don't fight, who is Joshua's next 2 or 3 opponents? A couple of good questions. It's heavy. This big 3 shit is actually starting to piss me off. At least we've seen Wilder versus Fury. Granted, we've seen that. Who comes out on top? I would say Fury. And let's be honest, if Fury does come out on top, he isn't fighting anyone good next. That's just how Fury works. Good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. True, check it. If they don't fight, who is Joshua's next 2 or 3 opponents? I mean, Dillian White, 110% will be Dillian White. Alexander Usyk, and maybe Kubrat Pulev, who was supposed to fight, a year ago and fought Takan. So that could be an option. Uma Naveed said, Calzaghe in his prime or Andre Ward. Dude, I've been going back and forth on that one for years. For years. What are we talking here? 168 or are we talking 175? Doesn't matter actually. Let's talk about both. Oh, man. I can't call it. I actually can't call it. What a wimp. Fence sitting at its highest. Can't call it. Such a good one. I can't call it. I'd have to really sit down and think. Can't call it, dude. Sorry, dude. Steve Hardy says, who do you rate higher and think will go on to have a better career out of the 3 British heavyweight prospects? Dubois, Gorman, or Joyce? I'm gonna say Dubois, only because he's got age on his side over the others. I mean, Joyce is what? Is Joyce like mid-30s or something? I don't know how old Joyce is. Gorman is a good boxer, but he doesn't have the equalizer. I don't think he has any punch power, really. I'm going to say Dubois if they can manage him correctly. So don't rush him, because there are talks about fighting Joe Joyce next, which is stupid. If they can manage him correctly and just work on a few things, he's not that bad. What is your favorite weight class in boxing and why? I've changed so much. When I was young, it was the middleweights, just because of the likes of, I don't know, James Toney, Roy Jones, Bernard Hopkins, Ben Eubank. I mean, come on, you can keep them going. It's ridiculous. I think over the years, though, it's been 147 just because of the depth in that division. The depth in 147 over the years has been fucking frightening. Honestly, it's frightening. So I just think it's been the best division for the past sort of 15, 20 years possibly. So I'm going to say 147. Callum Gallagher says, when do you see Spence versus Crawford happening? And who do you pick in that matchup? I don't think it's going to happen. Unless, I don't know what contract Crawford has with Top Rank. But unless Crawford can get out of that contract, this fight ain't happening. And Crawford isn't young either, by the way. I'm sure Crawford's 31, 32. So I think Crawford beats Spence, and I've said this 100 times, but I actually don't see the fight ever happening. So I don't want to get too invested in it. Rusyadi Jasani says, do you think the heavyweight era after AJ, Fury and Wilder will be interesting? There are new upcoming prospects such as Dubois, Gorman, Hergovich, Efe Ajagba and Yoka. I mean, it is a good sort of crop of guys coming up, I have to admit. But you know what it is about those guys you just mentioned? Let me look actually. None of them have personality. Which is an important factor, by the way. I mean, yes, it's all well and good being a good boxer, but personality counts for something as well. And I think that's why we like those matchups so much. Wilder and Fury just escalated because of personality more than anything. So, of those four, though, or five you've mentioned, I mean, there are some good guys there. Yoka, I don't know what's going to happen to him after that failed or for missed drug test. Let's see what happens at Jagba. We've got to see what he does. Hergovich looks serious. He looks like he can fuck a motherfucker up. Miss Millie says, what colour tie should Eddie wear in the Jacobs versus Canelo belt? He's not going to wear a tie, he's going to wear a turtleneck. We know this. Everyday Best says, you never answered my question from the first Q&A. I find it a bit painful that you did not attempt to answer all questions from prior Q&A requests before requesting more questions. My question wasn't even that exciting, I was just trying to jump aboard EL ship. Dude, see, look at this now. Perfect opportunity to ask a question, because I was going to read out your question and you've not asked a question. I'm not going to go back to the other Q&A and look at the question. Dan says, Ali, why is Billy Joe Saunders such an overrated and unlikable prick? I don't know. Is he overrated? He might be. I mean, we are just talking about, what's his biggest wins? Andy Lee and David Lemieux. I mean, maybe he's overrated. And as for being an unlikable prick, he doesn't help himself, does he? He doesn't. Kane Cotterill says, is it just me, or do you think Usyk will do better against the top three heavyweights? Fury, AJ, not so much Wilder, than the next tier. I just think that he would fare better with more polished boxers rather than the more crude, tougher, aggressive fighters. I think he should have gone straight for AJ with the element of him being a bit unknown at heavy, and he'd have nothing to lose but all to gain. I think he wants that fight, but could get roughed up by someone like White. Agreed 100%, dude. And I said this, I said Dylan White could rough him up. That's why I'm so interested in Carlos Takam. If Carlos Takam tries to box him, he's fucked. But if Carlos Takam just does what Carlos Takam does, which is come in head first, you never know. I think he does well against Fury and AJ. Wilder, I agree with you, not so much because Wilder is just reckless. He will land one, I think. But yeah, it's a good point you make. Durrell Carter says, would you rather take a right hand from Wilder or a left hook from Dillian White? Left hook from Dillian White all day. I mean, everyone says that Bermain Stavern kind of faked that knockout. Fuck off. He was out cold. So yeah, I mean, I'd rather take none, but Dillian White if I had to. Durrell Carter, Nigeria win the World Cup or Liverpool win the league. I'm sorry, Nigeria. Maybe, but it's got to be Liverpool win the league. It's got to be. I'm sorry. Sorry. Yo, hashtag Bantat Swag says, why is Manny Pacquiao not appreciated as much as an 8th division world champion should be? Isn't he the best ever on primarily the basis of boxing skill and technique? No, not based on that he isn't, because he's actually skill and technique isn't that great. He makes a lot of mistakes, but I agree with you. You're talking about an 8th division world champion. I mean, fucking ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, there is an asterisk for me. I'm not going to get into that again, but what Manny Pacquiao is doing, I mean, he's gone. I mean, how many eras has Manny Pacquiao fought in? It's just ridiculous, and I agree, he should be more appreciated, way more appreciated. Abdi Mirage says, hey Eddie, love your channel. My question is, do you think British channels like Hatman and Sporting Icons are too biased and pro Eddie Hearn and Matchroom and anti Frank Warren and Wilder? I don't think Hatman is that much. I mean, I know what you mean, but he does make some videos which would put him kind of semi like that, but Sporting Icons definitely. I mean, what the fuck's going on? I mean, it's ridiculous, and I don't understand why either. But I mean, Hatman, I have to give him a bit of a blight. I watch a lot of his videos, and I do think he can be a little biased, but I think overall, I think he's a bit fair and neutral. Tom Broad says, big up Addy, you've now overtaken Hatman as my #1 YouTube boxing channel. I haven't. I have to be honest with you guys. Look, I love doing this, but Hatman's knowledge and delivery, I think, is on another level. So I respect your opinion, but I'd have to say Hatman's still a bit better. NBA question, will LeBron win a ring with the Lakers before it's all said and done? I guess it depends who they get in the offseason, right? I mean, if he gets Kawhi Leonard, if he gets Kevin Durant, they are talking about maybe Klay Thompson. It's a good backcourt if he gets Klay Thompson. There need to be some incomings with the LA Lakers. If he doesn't get any of these guys, no chance. Sheriff Bigley 1787 says, why does Eddie Hearn, who is the son of a self-made multi-millionaire and presumably went to a posh private school, speak in such a thick working class accent, unlike other sons of self-made millionaires such as Shane McGuigan and Chris Eubank Jr.? That's a good question. I don't know. I actually don't know the answer to that one. But you're right. I mean, for someone that clearly did go to private school, I don't know why he speaks like that. Maybe it's to fit in a bit. Or maybe it's because he was immersed from such a young age around 90% of people in boxing who do speak like that, especially boxing in the East End. So, I don't know. Let's give him a bit of a blight. I like Eddie a little bit. Father Brumhilda says, if Joshua Fury and Wilder eventually all fight each other, how do you see each fight going? I think I've answered that one. Also, who was the better cruiserweight in their prime? Usyk, Holyfield, or Hay? Let's remove David Hay from that. I like Hay, man, but let's remove him from that. Usyk and Holyfield, it's got to be... That's close, you know. I've said this one before, it's actually quite close, but I would say Holyfield. Big fan from Brighton, appreciate your approach and insight. Thank you, brother. I lived in Brighton for like 8 years. I did. I lived in an area called Morscoon. I thought I'd just tell you just in case you know the area. Found Your Bike YT says, how do you see Dillian Whyte versus AJ rematch going if it happens in the future? Also, do you believe Dillian Whyte will get a title? Lovely videos, bro. Keep up. Thank you so much, brother. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I actually see it playing out almost similar to where the first fight played out. I think Dillian Whyte's improved. I think AJ's improved as well. I think AJ's actually got better. I know people don't think his last few performances were good, but still got the W. So I think it will play exactly like that. And do I believe Dillian Whyte will get a title? No, unless AJ vacates. If AJ vacates and no sort of titles out there, then yes. But if he has to fight AJ or Wilder, I just don't see him favouring either of those fights. Dan Burrell says, do you think ESPN are thinking they can do the same thing for Tyson Fury the way MMA have done for Conor McGregor? Don't know. I don't know. I mean, Tyson Fury's good, but he hasn't got a Conor McGregor personality. I mean, Conor McGregor is a fucking one-off. He really is. I mean, it's phenomenal for me, Conor McGregor. Give him that mic and it's a wrap. It's a wrap. Imani 1986 says, do you think Al Heyman and the PBC are bad for boxing? And should they be blamed for not only the mediocre state of boxing's popularity in America, but specifically the heavyweight division? Not so much the heavyweight division. I think it's difficult to blame them for the heavyweight division when a UK fight has 4 of the heavyweight belts. The problem for PBC is that they came in with almost a UFC mentality that we're going to get all the best talent and everything's going to be under PBC. Boxing is a bit more complicated than that, and there are so many different players. So they can't solely be blamed. I mean, Bob Aaron's been around for a long time in America. Golden Boy have been doing their stuff. Kathy Douglas has been doing her stuff in Canada. So there's so many people to blame. So I think it'd be wrong just to kind of point the blame on Al Heyman and PBC. Emmanuel 1986 do you listen to Fela? Of course I listen to Fela Kuti. I actually went to his shrine and smoked a bit of weed and drank some strong drinks in the shrine. Love that place. If you are Nigerian and you've not been to Fela Kuti's shrine, check your passport. If Brazil wins, how much should DAZN pay him to get to fight Joshua? Oh yeah, WBC belt, wouldn't it be? If Brazil wins, it just fucks up everything. I mean, it won't cost too much to get Brazil to fight Joshua. 10 million maybe? 15 max? That would fuck up everything. I actually believe that Andy Joshua would still want to fight Deontay Wilder for some weird reason. But yeah, that would fuck up everything. So fingers crossed that doesn't happen. Alright, 5 more minutes. Let's see how many more I can quickly do. Tyron Atkins says, hope this question makes the cut. It made the cut, brother. In light of Warrington versus Galahad title match, how do you think Prince Nassim Hamed would have fared against the Brit featherweights of the past 10 years, Frampton, Quigg, Selby, Warrington, etc.? In fact, how well would Nassim have done at world level since he retired? I'm sorry, people might disagree with me, but Prince Nassim would embarrass Frampton, Quigg, Selby, Warrington, Galahad. I mean, he even joked recently, didn't he, that he would beat Frampton and Warrington on the same night. He would beat them on the same night. In terms of world level, what are we talking? Same division, Leo Santa Cruz, Gary Russell Jr. would have caused him problems because of his hand speed. That would have been difficult. But the Prince, man, it's the Prince. He'll beat him. He'll find a way. Impodium says, hi Addy, sorry, I've got a couple of questions. What do you think is next for Dave Allen and Chisora if they beat their next opponents convincingly? There is talk about a potential matchup between those two, which I can't see Chisora wanting. Why the fuck would Chisora want to fight Dave Allen? Hope not. And do you think Lucas Brown will retire if he gets knocked out? Hope so. Hope so. I mean, this is a dangerous sport. You start to feel the effects of those knockouts later on in life, and I don't wish that on anyone. I mean, that knockout that he suffered against Dillian Whyte, that should have been that. So fingers crossed. I mean, if he does get knocked out, he calls it quits. But trust me, there is a good chance he could knock out Dave Allen. He could. And what do you think about Shannon Briggs saying he's coming out of retirement and hoping to fight in the UK? I want him to have one chance. I want him to, I really do. I mean, That little era of Shannon Briggs, I say era, not in the boxing ring, but I mean era outside the ring in terms of the way he kind of goaded Klitschko and everyone. He never really got a chance against anyone. I mean, I want him to have a chance against someone. I don't know who he can fight in the UK. I'm trying to think. I mean, Chisora possibly. Don't know if Chisora would want that fight. I don't know if it's a money fight. It probably isn't. So I don't know who he could fight, but it's a shame he didn't get that chance 3-4 years ago when he asked David Haye to fight, and David Haye says yes. And David Haye, I remember, said something like, if you fight on my undercard and win, I'll fight you. He fought on the undercard, won. David Haye didn't fight him. Wimp. President Torres says, when do you see Joshua Buatsi mixing it with world level? And when do you see Yarden next year? By the way, you think he will fight Kovalev next? Laughing out loud, keep up the good work. Do I think he'll fight Kovalev next? No. And if he doesn't, it's a problem because of that lions in the camp talk and a lot of talk from his trainer. Not much from Anthony, to be fair, but a lot of talk from Tunde. As for Joshua Buatsi, when we say world level, what are we talking? Top 15, top 20? It was sad now. I think 2 or 3 more fights and he does fight someone in the top 15 or top 20. Joshua Buatsi is the real deal. I really genuinely think of all the fighters under Matchroom's banner, he is the realest out of every single one of them. I mean it. It's something about him, the way he carries himself. He reminds me of a throwback fighter from the fucking 80s or the 70s. He's the real deal. He will become a world champion, but he's got to be careful because the guys at the very, very top are very, very good. But I wouldn't have no fear in chucking Buatsi with any of them in 3 or 4 more fights. Not yet in 3 or 4 more fights. So that's what I think. Guys, I've tried my hardest. I don't know how long this is, but I've tried my hardest. I've tried to answer as many questions as possible. We are done. We are done. Q&A part fucking 5 is in the books. Peace.